If you missed part 1, we pushed through some severe rain and winds to make the Perth 4x4 and adventure show. On the way we tested some Goodyear Wranglers as well as some gear from partners Zolio and Blue Water Campers. You'll find part 1 on our channel, go check it out if you haven't already. In this episode, we'll be looking at the power systems keeping our MyCoolman fridges running, how Manta Performance gets the best sounds out of the Monster Wheels Ram 1500, and how we plan and run trips like this. But first, we had to swap out the tyres on the Isuzu D-Maxes we were using for tyre testing. On the way to Perth, we tested different model Goodyear Wrangler all-terrains, and you'll find a video on the Bob Jane channel. This time we're looking at some Dunlop Grand Treks in the popular AT22, a great OE replacement tyre with low resistance silica compounds, and a more aggressive AT3G that features triple ply sidewalls. But before that, we stopped by Manta Performance Exhausts to have the big Ram checked over. Manta is a family-run business with operations in Victoria and Western Australia. We stopped by the new sales and distribution offices as well as both factories in our quest to get the Ram sounding right. What stood out to us was how straight up and driven and customer focused the whole team is. With brothers Edward and Daniel Draffin clearly passionate about performance and keeping jobs in Australia, they took us around the business before jumping into installing a catback exhaust on the Monster Wheels Ram.
The Ram is taking Australia by storm. It's got a massive tow capacity, it feels like king of the road, and it's pretty affordable, but it sounds like rubbish. So today, we're going to fix that. Under the 1500 is heaps of space for a much better exhaust. The catback system bolts on from the factory Y-pipe. It is a full twin 3-inch system with an H-pipe, hot dog and muffler centre. You get the choice of 5-inch chrome or black tips. Fitting time is about 45 minutes, so you can do most yourself, but the tips do need to be spot welded into place. Importantly, the system fits the factory-backed ASV and SED conversions, and if you go the full exhaust, it will clear the steering column no issue.
Clearly, Tony was having a lot of fun with the Ram, and we'll hear more from him in a bit, but before that, the Dunlop tyres needed some attention before we started heading for home.
Just a little out of Perth on a return leg back to Melbourne. We've got 2 identical Isuzus that we're going to be doing some testing again. We've got 2 Dunlop tyres, so we've got the AT3G and the AT22. By the looks of what the AT3G is, it's a little bit more aggressive than your conventional all-terrain, so expect a little bit of noise, a little bit of increased fuel consumption, but I reckon it'll perform well off-road. So what are you expecting out of the AT22?
Well, the tread is more of a highway terrain pattern, which should be quieter on the road, so should be better with the fuel consumption, and it'll be good to see how they perform on the different terrains that we'll be experiencing over the next couple of days.
It's day 1 of the return leg back to Melbourne, and the reason why I'm talking to you already is because I had forecast yesterday for pretty much perfect weather the whole way back, and last night we had the complete opposite. Complete washout, thunder and rain all night long. But we found a magic spot to stop, Marvel Lock, which has free hot showers and a really friendly pub.
Once set up, it was time to take a good look at the power systems in the back of the blue Bob Jane Triton.
The ProBoost 25 is compatible with most types of batteries, including lithium and deep cycle. It has dual inputs, so it will take charge from both your alternator and from a 25 amp MPPT solar input. Importantly, it is smart alternator ready, so it will work with modern SUVs and utes. The ProBoost can be chassis or in-cab mounted, so long as it's well ventilated. Ideally close to the battery, it is going to charge. The instruction booklet has great detail on the wiring and best practice, so you could install it yourself. There is also a 40 amp version available that is the same size but pumps out 40 amps. Both the 25 and the 40 are IP66 rated, meaning they are okay to use where dust and water will splash them, and they can handle temperatures from -20 to 80 degrees, so under the bonnet near your radiator support panel is perfect.
It's great to see another Aussie company having a crack at underbonnet DC-DC charging, and with the size and support of BM Pro, there's no doubt they'll back the Pro Boost and get it in the hands of retailers and installers in no time. Marvel Lock is a great stop. There is an active mine nearby, so you might wake up to the change of shift or a few trucks passing in the night, but for a free camp with hot showers and a decent pub, that's forgivable. Before we kick on to Baxter Cliff, it was time to look over the 4 MyCoolman fridges that had been working tirelessly for us.
Now we've got 4 different models with us on our cross Nullarbor trip. Each serve a different purpose, but do one thing in common: keep your drinks and perishables cold and secure.
Online reviews of the Commuter talk about how great it is as an in-car cooler for long drives, but it also works as a warmer to an impressive 65 degrees, perfect for keeping a roast warm. This is the 44 litre Weekender single zone. Empty, it weighs only a touch over 23 kilos, and it can hold as many as 65 standard cans. It can run on 12, 24 or 240 volts, and it has a turbo mode, so you can fast chill anything recently loaded in. MyCoolman came out with a super clever portable power pack that can be used with any 12 volt fridge using this 2-pin plug. It carries 15 amp hours, and being lithium, you can use most of that, so expect on a fridge pulling 2 amps continuous up to 7 hours, or see the list that MyCoolman reckons you'll get with the fridges we have on hand in typical use.
This is the 69 litre Traveller, the most popular fridge in the MyCoolman range.
It is a dual zone, so you can have one side as a freezer and one side as a fridge. Like the rest of the compressor cooled range, the Traveller has a 5-year compressor warranty. Impressive stuff. The big gun, the 85 litre dual zone Adventurer. We've added one to our trip camper, the Blue Water Tasman Forward Fold. The Adventurer comes in under $1,800, which is pretty decent for a fridge with a 5-year compressor warranty. And when I've been out with it, running one side at -10 and one side at 3 and fully loaded, it would sit on or less than 3.5 amps continuous.
So we've looked at the 4 fridges that suited us best on our trip, but MyCoolman does a heap more, and you can find the range online.
After another wet night's sleep, we were back at it for tyre testing with the Bob Jane team.
We didn't take the easy route to Melbourne. We planned our drive to take the dirt roads around Hyde and Norseman, the beaches on the southern coast, and plenty of highway along the Nullarbor. We kept the cars the same, kept speeds the same, and stopped to get a refuel. Our objective was to find out which tyre felt best in various conditions and how close it would measure on fuel consumption when comparing a more aggressive all-terrain pattern against a balanced road biased all-terrain tyre in the same brand.
Things did not go our way. The weather was terrible, so we made the call to push past Baxter Cliff, usually a stop I would always recommend, but in the rain and wind it's just not safe.
Hey guys, it looks like tonight's going to be another washout. What we might need to do is push on a bit further so that tomorrow we've got a bit more time at Scott Bay. So I'm thinking maybe push through to Majura, which is about another 1.5 to 2 hours past Kaiguna, but I do know they've got a good restaurant and plenty of cold beer. Thanks guys.
The lads covered some serious Ks on the next couple of days. With the weather changing almost hourly from sunny to pouring rain, we pushed on through long days of dirt and bitumen driving. Reading the weather on the Zoleo satellite communicator and checking distances, we set our sights on Scott Bay, 1 bay west of the popular Fowlers, and I reckon a hidden gem, but not before Tony learned a thing or two about how to get the best out of the big ram.
This morning I have discovered the final overdrive gear in the car, so I am now sitting on around 1800 RPM, and what has that done to my fuel economy? It's brought me down to 19.9 litres per 100, so I'm happy as a pig in shit, as they say.
So we've just arrived at Scott Bay. I've been driving the Dunlop AT3Gs. We've done a little over 1100 kilometres in tarmac. I had the confidence in the dirt, so I was actually doing about 105, 110. It was really responsive, really controlled. Stiff sidewalls, the 3-ply was phenomenal. Tarmac was a tad noisy, but again, we were faced with a lot of wet weather, so the performance on that, it was quite grippy, even though the comfort side was lacking with the stiff sidewalls. So how was your tyres?
My tyres were great. I'm driving the second D-Max with the AT22s. Stability was very good. Out on the tarmac was beautiful. Dropped the fuel to around about 8.2 litres per 100. Handling on the sealed road is fantastic at 110. We were driving in the wet, but loved it. Loved the car, loved the tyres.
Nearing the end of the drive, we stopped at Scott Bay, just west of Fowler's Bay. Here, there are marked tracks and some dunes leading to quiet beaches which gave us a chance to unwind and have some fun. As expected, the AT3Gs threw more sand than the AT22s, but both performed well on soft and hard sand. Talking to Rich, I think the AT22s are better suited to sand, but not just because they're less aggressive tread, but also because they have a less stiff sidewall that bagged out better when dropped to around 20 psi. So clearly Tony wasn't paying attention to John and Rich, as he made a big mistake when taking the Ram onto the beach.
Some guy thought it would be funny to drive the Ram fully loaded with a camper van with the normal standard pressures.
I went up through some sand dunes. Biggest mistake I made. I did not drop my pressures, guys. So I was running 38 psi straight off the highway. Didn't drop my pressures, went through some sand, got stuck. Now thanks to the boys, we got the tracks out and we lowered the pressures down. Look at the tyres, we put a big bag on the tyres. We got them down to about 16 psi. That helped. Bit of digging, bit of running around, and we're back on solid ground, or sort of solid ground.
It's the last day of proper camping on our Monster Wheels Melbourne to Perth return journey. Now the weather's finally come good. We're here at Scott Bay, which is really close to Fowler's Bay, and it's just perfect. Now the guys have learnt a lot. More importantly, they've had a hell of a lot of fun. Tomorrow we head to Adelaide, and from there we head home. But I think today is the day that everyone will remember the most.
We settled in for a night on the beach at Scott Bay, which gave us a chance to look back at the places we'd been on the HEMA HX2 Navigator. We'd used the HX2 to track our driving in case we had to backtrack, like happened on our way through Twilight Cove. With over 100,000 points of interest, it also came in handy for searching for campsites on the fly. HEMA has mapped over 1 million k's of tracks from the Victorian High Country to the goldfields out west. So like the Zolio, having navigation equipment that works without mobile coverage is a must-have on big trips like this. The next morning, we recapped what was coming up and how the Wranglers on the big Ram were holding up.
So here we are, guys. We're testing the Goodyear Wranglers and been testing the Goodyear Silent Tracks on the D-Maxes. We've driven over from Adelaide. I've been driving a camper van facing 40 to 50 km/h headwinds and a lot of rain. The car was actually getting around 28 litres per 100, running on placard pressures. When I took the camper van off and been running on the bitumen, I got it down to 20 litres per 100. So that was a really good effort for the car and the tyres. The tyres have been working really well. They've been really quiet. When we went off road, obviously you've got to drop your pressures down. So we're running around 16 psi pressure on the sand. As you can see, the side biters work really well. They get rid of the mud and the sand really quickly. And as you can see, there's nothing really stuck in the tread blocks. The tyres themselves, I've also noticed if you don't put them back on the pressure or the right pressures on the highway, we run around 30 psi, they do start howling. So remember, when you get back on the black stuff, it's really important to put your pressures back to the placard pressure for the car. So when facing the headwinds today and the rain, the tyres were very, very safe on the roads. It felt very comfortable, very smooth. Even overtaking some slower caravans doing that 70 kilometres an hour, the car's very stable going around those corners, around those caravans. Now on the dirt, when we're doing the dirt driving as well, once I dropped my pressures down a little bit, I was quite comfortable doing 80 kilometres an hour on those dirt roads. The tyres are nice and spongy when you put the sidewalls down. It gives you a bit of flex and it gives you time to go around the corners and handle those curves quite safely.
We put on a brand new set of Goodyear Duratracs before we left Melbourne, ran all the way to Perth, and now we're almost home. Over that time, I've towed on the sand, I've driven on the tarmac with and without the camper, wet and dry, and I've taken it into some pretty soaked, rainy, muddy conditions. I'm pretty happy with how they've gone. Previously we had a set of Coopers on this, mud terrain Coopers. The big difference is actually not an obvious one to a lot of people, but it's the weight of the wheel and the tyre package. The Coopers were really heavy and you could feel that in the steering. Grip wise, pretty similar. These being new, they gripped quite well out of the box, particularly in the mud, but they did tramline quite a lot on the beach. It was quite squirrely. On the road, noise is not bad, but they are new, so when they wear down, they are likely to get a bit noisier. Overall, pretty happy, and this is the second set we've run, so obviously we feel like we're onto a good thing. When they wear down a bit, we'll see how much noisier they get and what the grip's like, and we'll see what goes on next.
That was about the end of the trip. The drive to Adelaide and on to Melbourne was boring, but we kept the fuel consumption testing on the Dunlops. The trip went well. We had a good look at the Tasman camper from Bluewater, and we stayed safe with the Zoleo satellite communicator and HEMA HX2. We kept our power reserves topped up with the BM Pro Boost, and all of our food and drinks cold with the MyCoolman fridges. And of course, all the cars looked great on the monster off-road wheels.
Melbourne has welcomed us back with some more dreary weather, but it was sunny where it mattered over in Perth for the 4x4 show, and we had a lot of fun. Plus we learned a lot. Tony learned about getting stuck, Johnny learned about off-road driving, and I learned about how damn well John can cook. But the team also learned a lot about the tyres we had on test. So keep an eye out on the Bob Jane channels for some tyre tests and more epic touring content.